April 23, 1934. The Central Prison of Arizona, United States. A knock on the guardroom door, and in walks a prisoner still wearing his striped uniform, holding a weapon unlike anything the guards had ever seen. His expression was calm, his smile mysterious, confident. He looked at them all and said coolly, "According to the law, you are obligated to protect my life from any threat. If I end someone's life or fire at any of you, you will absolutely be held accountable for what happens here. Because without your negligence, without your carelessness on the job, a prisoner like me never would have gotten his hands on a weapon like this. And he certainly never would have walked out of his cell alone. But none of that matters right now. What matters is that I have a weapon that fires 10 rounds with a single trigger pull. So what I need from you is to stay calm and cooperate. I don't want to kill anyone, not a single one of you.
All I want is to walk out of this prison. We're going to walk out through your back exit together. No noise, no chaos." The guards froze where they sat, unable to move, completely stunned. The weapon looked strange, like nothing any of them had seen in their careers. And the fact that a prisoner was speaking with this level of calm and command, as if they were the ones in the cell and he was the officer, paralyzed them completely. The prisoner moved closer, took one of the pistols sitting on the table beside them, ordered one guard to hand over his uniform, which he did, then stepped out, locked the door behind him, changed clothes, and returned. He opened the door again and called out for a specific guard named Fenn. He pointed at him from the doorway. "You, come with me," and locked the door on the rest. He told Fenn, "You're walking out with me." Why Fenn specifically? Because during his entire time inside, just 2 months, every single recreation period, this prisoner had been quietly watching every guard, studying their personalities. And he'd identified Fenn as quiet, passive, easily controlled, the least likely to cause a scene. Before he left the room, he warned the other guards, "If word gets out about what happened here, Fenn dies. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will defend this escape. I said it from the beginning. All I want is to get out. I don't want to kill anyone with this weapon." The prisoner walked Fenn straight through the main security checkpoint, laughing casually, greeting guards along the way. And because no one recognized him, but his body language, his posture, the way he carried himself in that uniform, read as a senior officer. They walked right out the main door. After about 20 minutes of walking, the prisoner flagged down a taxi. But before the car pulled away, he tossed the strange weapon out of the window and said to Fenn, "A gift, from me to you all." Fenn approached it and picked it up. The shock was absolute. It wasn't a real weapon at all. It was a piece of wood, crudely carved into the shape of a pistol, painted black with shoe polish, and hand-engraved on the side with the names of the guards and one final message. "With love, John Dillinger." And just like that, another chapter was written in the story of one of the most mysterious and audacious criminals in the history of the 20th century. Before we dive in, welcome to the channel, and a quick word from today's sponsor, Genie, the most trusted ride service in Saudi Arabia. Available anytime, day or night, any day of the year. Genie's professional drivers are always near you, always ready. Clean vehicles at unbeatable rates. For existing and new users alike, I've got a 40% discount code for you. Book your next ride with Genie at a rate that actually makes sense. Genuinely a great deal. If you don't have the app yet, download link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Now, back to the real reason you're here. If this is your first time here, I'm Amin the narrator. I cover everything strange and mysterious on this planet. And as always, before we begin, if you're enjoying this channel, don't let a single video go by without showing some support. A like, a subscribe, it means more than you think. Today, I'm telling you the story of John Dillinger, the man widely considered the most skilled, most audacious bank robber in the history of the 20th century, who became famous for 3 things above all: escaping from prison, robbing banks, and outrunning the law. And I want to take a moment to sincerely thank you, because we are on the edge of 3 million subscribers. That doesn't happen without you. Thank you, genuinely. Big things are coming to this channel very soon. June 22, 1903, on the outskirts of Indianapolis, Indiana. That's where John Herbert Dillinger entered the world. His father ran a small grocery store and was extremely strict with his son. When John was just 3 years old, his mother died. His aunt raised him until he was 9, when his father remarried and brought John back home, putting him to work in the store and even having him sleep there. School in the mornings, the store every afternoon. No rest, no childhood. John's behavior deteriorated rapidly. He was expelled from multiple schools, and his father's only response to any of it was physical punishment. According to every source, his father embraced him with genuine warmth exactly once in his entire lifetime. One time. That was it. And that total absence of affection is what shaped everything that followed. At 14, after being expelled from his final school, John dropped out entirely and went to work full-time for his father. But 2 years later, in 1924, a violent argument erupted between them. John struck his father, grabbed money from the register, and fled to Indianapolis. And that's where the story of John Dillinger, as history knows it, truly began. John was immediately captivated by the city, the energy, the scale of it. He had almost nothing, just the small sum he'd taken from the register. He'd actually pocketed a few extra bills in the days before the fight. He'd been quietly planning a departure even then. Since he'd spent his life in a grocery store, he went looking for work in the same world. But nothing came. The only job he found was at a shoe repair workshop. He worked by day and spent every penny at nightclubs after dark. It didn't take long for the money to run out completely. There was a grocery store near where he worked. He started stealing from it. John had a natural gift, extraordinary sleight of hand. He could lift anything at speed without a single person noticing. He always wore shirts with wide sleeves, so anything he picked up could slide directly into the fabric undetected. He'd walk into that grocery store every single day, chat with the owner casually, and while talking, he'd be quietly transferring items into his sleeve the entire time. Every morning he'd steal breakfast, every midday lunch, and dinner if he could manage it. Then he'd walk back to the workshop without a trace of guilt. This went on for 4 solid months. Everything was working. Days at the shop, nights at the clubs, weekends wandering the city streets he'd fallen in love with. Throughout those 4 months, he spent his free time simply absorbing the city. He was genuinely enchanted by it. But during that same time, his father had been searching for him, and eventually, he found him. The moment they came face to face, his father rushed toward him and embraced him. The first and only real embrace of John's life. And for a young man who had been emotionally starved his entire existence, that one moment of physical warmth was enough. His father said, "Come home. We'll live on a farm, away from the city." He wanted to pull his son back from the pull of Indianapolis. He could see how deeply the city had captured him. John agreed, but he wasn't going back empty-handed. He'd been quietly saving money from his workshop job, anticipating another eventual break with his father, and he'd been selling small materials he'd steadily stolen from the workshop, always in small enough quantities that no one noticed. The money he had wasn't from wages. He'd earned it through theft, as usual. John stayed on the farm with his father until the day a letter arrived from the grocery store owner whose shop sat next to the workshop, the one John had been stealing from every single day for 4 months. The man had written, "John, I noticed what you were doing from the very first day. I watched you steal and hide things in your sleeve, and I never said a word, because I genuinely liked you. I was amazed by your speed, your composure, how you could keep a completely normal conversation going while doing what you were doing and show nothing. You got better every single day. By the end, I couldn't even tell when you were taking something anymore." And at the end of the letter, the man wrote, "You are an artist and a genius. But I'm asking you, please, to direct these gifts towards something good. I'm certain you could succeed in any field you choose." John read that letter, and something shifted inside him. He decided to go back to the city and discover exactly what he was capable of. After just 2 months on the farm, he returned. He went directly to the grocery store owner, apologized, told him he'd pay back everything. The owner said, "I forgive you. I don't want the money. Just promise me you'll use what you have for something worthwhile." After that conversation, John tried everything: circus work, currency exchange, banks. Nobody hired him. He eventually landed a job at a nightclub, a billiards parlor. He was 17, and he was remarkable. According to every account across the entire history of gambling halls, no one had natural instincts like John Dillinger. He could shuffle cards in ways that defied comprehension. He could predict which player would win a game before it began. He partnered with hustlers and manipulated outcomes for a percentage. He did this for 2 full years and built up a substantial amount, enough to go back and actually pay the grocery store owner what he owed him, the man who had first seen his gift and given him the courage to develop it. But then, one day, he was caught cheating, and the man who caught him was a member of a gang. He looked at John and told him, "The next time I see your face, I will kill you." And what no one could have predicted was that this exact man who had just threatened John's life would one day become his closest friend. But first, after being exposed for rigging the games, John had to disappear from the gambling scene entirely to avoid crossing paths with this dangerous man. He found work at a billiards hall instead, and there he met someone named Ted. 2 young men, both unmoored, both going nowhere, and they made a decision together. They were going to rob a supermarket. They walked in armed, and their plan fell apart completely, both arrested on the spot. And here, watch what happens, because this is where the tragedy of John Dillinger begins. John was originally facing a 2-year sentence. When his father found out, he came to stand by his son.
And I say this with nothing but sincerity. He should have stayed home. His father, with the best of intentions, advised John to tell the judge that he'd been coerced by a gang, that they had threatened and forced him into it, believing this would lead to a reduced sentence. John stood before the judge and said exactly that. He said he was a gang member. He told the whole story. And instead of reducing the sentence, the confession made everything dramatically worse. The charge was reclassified from attempted robbery to criminal conspiracy as a gang operative. And instead of 2 years, 21-year-old John Dillinger was sentenced to 14. This happened in 1925. For John, this was a death blow. 14 years, unappealable, unchangeable. There was nothing ahead of him but prison and losing an entire decade of his life. To make things worse, the moment he stepped inside the prison, he came face to face with the exact man who had once threatened to kill him.
Imagine what those first days felt like. And yet, within months, that same man became his closest ally inside. Time passed, and John didn't waste it. He became the most powerful gang leader inside the prison. He commanded loyalty. He built a structure. He ran the place. And he treated prison not as a punishment, but as a classroom, a place to sharpen everything he had, a place to prepare for whatever came next. Let me tell you how the first breakout happened. After 6 years inside, John had studied every element of that prison, every guard's schedule, every shift change, every behavioral pattern during duty hours. He had drawn a mental map of the entire structure and identified every structural weakness. After 2 years of research and planning, he concluded that the weakest point in the entire facility was the laundry room. Beneath the washing machines, there were water pipes running directly up from the basement. If they could detach those pipes and dig around them, they could drop down into the crawl space beneath the prison, the gap between the prison floor and the sewer system, and from there, access the sewers and emerge at any point in the city. He designed the plan in full detail and distributed roles among his crew inside. But then something completely unexpected changed everything. A week before execution, John was sitting in the yard with his crew during recreation. They were adding final touches to the plan. He had all the papers with him, drawings, layouts, everything mapped to precise detail. When recreation ended and they were heading back, guards called him aside. They wanted him at the investigator's office. He went in and the investigator told him, "Your conditional parole request, submitted 3 years ago, has just been approved. You're free tomorrow." That news didn't make him happy, not at all, because it meant the plan, everything he'd built, was now unnecessary.
During the follow-up meeting, one of the investigators asked to see the papers he was carrying. John handed them over without hesitation. The investigator looked at the diagrams and said, "This looks like a breakout plan." John smiled calmly and said, No, I've been writing a detective novel. I wanted to adapt it into a screenplay after I got out, but since I can't write well, I've been drawing the scenes instead." The guards thought about it, they discussed it, and they bought it. Next morning, John Dillinger walked out through the front gate. But the plan he left behind? That was still active, because it had been designed so precisely that even without its architect, his crew could execute it. And exactly 1 month after John's release, every one of his men broke out of that prison. They bribed the guard assigned to manage work rotations
and had him assign maximum laundry duty shifts to John's men. The laundry room only needed 8 workers, but the bribed guard put all 14 of John's crew on the list. Once inside, 4 of them detached the washing machines and began excavating beneath them, widening the opening around the pipes until a human body could fit through. Every time they finished a shift in the laundry room, they rotated the digging, always taking turns. And when each session ended, they reassembled everything perfectly. No trace, no evidence. After 4 weeks of this, the tunnel was ready. On a chosen night, they slipped into the laundry room, went through the opening, and crawled through the gap beneath the prison. The next day, at a specific hour in the afternoon, they emerged into sunlight outside the prison walls for the first time in years. John was waiting. He had prepared everything. He took them directly to a new hideout, a basement in a neighborhood where every official on the block was corrupt, where the police themselves were on the gang's payroll, selling contraband, running cover, looking the other way. And from that location, John forgot the grocery store owner's advice. He forgot every good intention. He went all in on robbing banks. Their first heist took place in 1933, just 2 months after the crew escaped. They walked into a bank in tailored suits, arriving in a black motorcade, looking like government officials. John walked up to the bank manager and said, "We're from the Intelligence Bureau. We've received credible intelligence that this branch may be targeted for a bombing. We don't yet know why this specific bank is the target. We're still working that angle, but we need to move the vault contents to the Federal Reserve immediately. Please cooperate. This protects everyone." John was convincing enough that the manager didn't even think to contact the actual police for verification. John had prepared every detail. The gang had 22 members that day, all carrying forged federal identification. They had real weapons, pistols, and short-barrel automatics. But among those weapons, 8 were plastic toys. Their budget was limited. They couldn't arm everyone. The employees fully cooperated. Everything was working. The vault opened. They began moving money. But the moment the cash was in motion, 2 of John's men exchanged a smile, a look. One of the tellers noticed it. What kind of federal intelligence agent smiles like that during an active bomb threat? He started to move. John clocked it immediately and shouted the code word they had agreed upon in advance. Plan B. Take hostages and retreat through the back exit with whatever they had. They made it out, but not without a chase. A shootout erupted. 2 of John's men died. But the operation had succeeded. They had the money. After that first job, John had some old business to settle. There was a score from years ago, unfinished, unforgotten. The supermarket where he'd been arrested the first time. The robbery that had cost him 3 years of his early life. John took his entire crew there. They walked in armed, locked the place down, cleaned out the safe, and then went further. He brought a large moving truck and emptied every shelf in the store. The way he treated the staff was brutal. And when he left a note for the owner. It read, "If you had let me take a little back then, I wouldn't have come back for everything today." Then he took everything they had stolen and drove it into the poorest neighborhoods in the city. He distributed all of it to the homeless. He told them he'd be back. And he kept that promise, doing it more than 10 times over,
in exchange for asking them to be ready whenever he needed them.
His message? It was time for the poor to rise against the corrupt rich. And just like that, John Dillinger became a folk hero. He became the people's champion, a modern Robin Hood. 6 months into the distributions, John made a different kind of decision. He wanted to go after the police directly, because in his mind, they were the ones who had taken everything from him. He started paying the homeless $200 a hit to kill any police officer they could and bring proof. In just 1 week, over 20 officers were killed. And strangely, every incident was recorded as unknown assailants. No pattern was flagged. No coordinated response was launched. Because the killings happened at scattered locations, different methods, different times, police couldn't connect them into a single picture. John's goal was simple: make people afraid to join the police force. Demoralize the institution. Make it a symbol of vulnerability instead of power.
Any officer could die at any moment, and that same unpredictable fear would make officers dangerous, shooting anyone who looked suspicious out of their own paranoia. But the scheme collapsed within 2 weeks. Some of the homeless men were killed attempting the attacks. That became a threat to John's reputation and to the people who trusted him. He shut it down immediately, pulled all the bounties, and went back to planning. Something smarter. Something no one had ever tried before. He said to himself, why go into banks with guns and terror? Why pretend to be the police? Why not steal money from the source, through the checks themselves? The plan worked like this. John and one associate walked into a bank and presented themselves as census officials from the city center, collecting data on high-net-worth clients. They asked for names and home addresses only, not balances, just contact information, as part of a routine financial compliance sweep. It seemed entirely legitimate, and the bank handed it over. After that worked, John repeated it at a second bank, a third, a fourth. He now had a database of wealthy targets across the city. He began surveilling them. And once he had enough intelligence on each one, he launched simultaneous operations on a single day. He divided his crew into teams of 3. Each team visited a target at their home, took them hostage overnight, and forced them to write a check for the maximum amount they could authorize. In a single day, 7 wealthy executives were held overnight. 7 checks signed under duress. At dawn, before the banks opened, the team responsible for cashing arrived at each property and collected the checks from the men being held inside. Before releasing them, each man was forced to call his bank and personally authorize the payout to an incoming representative. The team then went directly to the banks, presented the checks, the bank calls were already confirmed, and walked out with the cash. The operation was a complete success, one of the most efficient and sophisticated robberies in John Dillinger's entire career. But a few months later, John led his crew to rob a bank in Bluffton, Ohio, and the plan failed. He was arrested on the spot. Before any transfer could be arranged, he was held at the nearest police station. That same evening, at exactly 8 p.m., 3 men in official uniforms walked into the station. They presented federal credentials to the duty officer and told him they had orders to interrogate John Dillinger and then transfer him to the county prison. They said they'd be using the station's own vehicles for the transfer. The duty officer cooperated completely. They brought John into the officer's room. The moment John saw the 2 men, he recognized them immediately. These weren't federal agents, they were his crew. And with a single glance, he understood the plan and played along. They sedated the duty officer, walked John out of the station with his handcuffs still on, got him into the car, and drove to their safe house, as if nothing had happened. 5 days later, John made a decision. He went back to that police station with his entire crew. They raided it, took large quantities of weapons and ammunition. A gunfight broke out. 1 officer was killed. After this, John stopped being afraid of anything. He decided he would rob a bank every single week, but now with brute force. No disguises, no deception, just power and weapons. He walked into banks armed, but his luck had finally run out. Plans kept failing. He was captured, along with 2 crew members, and sent to the county jail in Crown Point, Indiana. A trial date was set, 2 months out. And during that time, he was tortured by the guards who despised him, and by fellow inmates who the guards encouraged to do it. But one day before the trial, he walked into the guard room, exactly as I described at the beginning of this video, and walked out of that prison like smoke through a keyhole. Now, some sources say he used the wooden gun to threaten one specific guard into opening his cell, and then stole the other guard's real weapons and forced his way out. But the version I told you at the start of this video, the psychological performance, the calm, the fake gun, that is the account confirmed by the majority of credible sources. After this escape, John disappeared completely. It was clear he was either trying to leave the country or preparing to assume a new identity entirely. Some sources say he contacted his remaining crew and told them, "We have enough. Let's stop all of this. Let's just live. We have more than we'll ever need." But it was too late. The machine was already moving. Most of the gang had scattered, and John was left, with only 4 people still at his side. And then the Federal Bureau of Investigation assigned a dedicated task force with a single mandate: catch John Dillinger, with a deadline and a public reward. Pay close attention now, because what happens next was something no one anticipated. On July 18th, 1934, a woman called the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She said her name was Anna Sage, and that she knew everything about John Dillinger. She could deliver him to them easily if they agreed to her terms. They asked what she wanted. She said, $200,000 and citizenship. I'm a Romanian immigrant. I have no status here. The Bureau asked for 1 day to review her terms. The next day, she called back at the exact same time. The agent on the file said, "We can offer you $800, and we'll work with immigration services to help regularize your status. That's the most we can do." She had no leverage to push back. She accepted. She told them she was an escort, and that in a few days she had plans to go to the cinema with John. If they could guarantee her safety, she would help them take him. The Bureau agreed. The night was set. July 22nd, 1934, 8 p.m. Federal agents entered the Biograph Theater in Chicago, disguised as staff and ordinary patrons. Anna Sage was wearing an orange-red dress, so agents could identify her in the crowd. The moment John walked in, the lead agent lit a cigarette, the signal to the other agents, "He's inside. He's with us." But John sensed it. He always sensed it. He drew his weapon, fired into the air, and ran. He burst through the crowd and out of the building, sprinting through the streets. But one of the agents managed to get a clear shot. 5 bullets connected. John Dillinger fell, and he didn't get up. The next day, authorities officially announced his death. John Dillinger, dead at 31 years old. And a formal prohibition was issued on any further public discussion of him, which, as you can see, is something I am very much ignoring right now. The prohibition existed because his story was extraordinary, and because the public had genuinely loved him. He had been paying monthly living allowances to over 2,000 families in poverty. People didn't see him as a criminal. They saw him as a symbol, a man who defied the system on behalf of everyone the system had left behind. That was the story of John Dillinger. I hope it moved you. If this kind of story is what keeps you coming back, check out this next video. The 2 stories are linked, strange events full of unexpected twists. Tell me in the comments what you think of John Dillinger. Was he a criminal or a product of a system that failed him first? I'm Amin the narrator. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.